All right. Well, welcome back, everyone, to our latest installment of Pints with Ayre. I am your host, Jake Forsyth, and this is our president, chief airhead himself, Ariel Brown. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you for joining. All right. Well, so today's topic, we're going to go over a little bit of history for the company, and we're going to talk about the Ariel Brown origin story. I think it would be really beneficial for us to go through and kind of catch up a lot of our faithful airheads and potential new airheads out there who our president and airhead in chief is, and how involved you've been with the company over the years. But I guess before we dive into all that, let's maybe dive into what we're drinking. So
Indeed.
I know I'm talking a lot, but I might want to talk about this one because I really like it.
Yeah, please do.
So yeah, this is not a local brew. This is one of my go-to favorites. If I just happen to see it on the shelf and I'm indifferent, this might be one of the ones that I grab, but it's a Samuel Smith chocolate stout, organic chocolate stout. But it's from the UK. And so I got to give a shout out to our friend Simon out in the UK at Decent Audio. Simon is our distributor for the UK. So we just had to give a quick shout out to you, Simon, because we're drinking a UK beer. And when we come and visit you, you got to take us around to all the breweries. Samuel Smith has a bunch of breweries scattered around the UK. They have hotels, and they've been brewing since 1758. So it's 265 years for them this year. But that would be a lot of fun for us to go visit Simon at Decent Audio, and
I would love that.
Hit some pubs. So for you, Mr. Ariel, I want to know, when did you first know you loved music? What was kind of that aha moment in your life that like music was a core essential thing for you?
Music, well, so my parents were into, at the time, fairly popular music. So, but it was just kind of part of life. I didn't really think of it that way. I would say, in kind of middle of high school, I had a friend who really introduced me to all the new music, and it changed the way I thought about music. He was really instrumental in connecting me with just all this new stuff I never even imagined. He definitely set me on that path, as far as just the impact of music, and just different. He was he's almost, at this point, he's more of a historian of music, as far as he knows everything about the backstory of every band and every musician, and the technical aspects. I think, kind of like you, he actually went to school and partially studied music recording. He did a program at Chico State. Anyway, so that's my real connection with music really kind of flourished because of him, and I credit him a lot for that. He introduced me to amazing music. And then, if we're talking about the next step of actually hi-fi stereo, that started shortly after I started as a freshman in college at Colorado School of Mines here in Golden, Colorado. So one of the first people I met, and one of the first kind of like intro nights at as a freshman kind of orientation thing. One of the guys I met, started hanging out with him, and in his little teeny little room, he had I might not be a traditional hi-fi system, but it certainly blew my mind. He had some Klipsch Forte 2s and a Carver, like a 300-watt power amplifier or something, and like a Nakamichi CD player, I think, and it was this the school system, but in this teeny little room, highly overpowered by those Klipsch's. and again, almost literally blew my mind. I forget what he played. I think it was a first thing he played for him was Dead Can Dance, and just at insane volume, and it, you know, and that high powered system played very cleanly. That whole experience was again kind of mind blowing. So that set me on that path, and so he introduced me to, you know, like Stereophile magazine and such, and so that's when I started reading that and getting familiar with the various companies, and, you know, all the wide world of possibilities.
Very cool. Do you think kind of like where you grew up and went to school and such had an influence on what you ended up gravitating towards and liking for music?
Specifically for music, no. I mean, I think that's
Okay, I know you spent some time Santa Cruz, Bay Area,
yeah.
and I know there's a lot of cool music going on in the kind of the 80s and 90s around there. A lot of new different stuff.
Yeah, I don't recall it being very localized like that as far as local music. I mean, I had, you know, going through high school, we, you know, had friends who were in really fun bands, and so we would go watch them. So, you know, yeah, you know, friends in like ska bands and punk bands and stuff. We had a lot of fun with that, for sure. You know, but so, you know, that's, you know, my first concert experiences, you know, were all in the Bay Area, and so but most of that was not necessarily a regional thing. It was more big bands from national acts.
Right on. And so oh, well, actually, before I get to that, what was your first concert that you can think back to that you had gone to? You obviously like live music, right?
Yeah, so my friend who introduced me to, you know, current music, he dragged me to my first concert. So it was in Santa Cruz at the, you know, kind of the local concert, you know, small venue concert spot at the Catalyst downtown Santa Cruz. So first concert I went to was Rollins Band, with the opening act of Tool, and again, that was eye-opening. It's a very different experience. That's a very physical experience, and it was a lot of fun. It's I know a lot of our I'd say hi-fi viewers may not be familiar with some of that, but that was definitely some of my roots, concert going and music, and so that was a very intense, very fun, loud.
No, that's awesome to be able to see Tool as an opening act, even like
Yeah.
that's an accomplishment I don't think very many people can say anymore. And you'd be lucky to see them for less than $100 these days in the nosebleeds, probably.
Yeah, I was definitely impressed. But I mean, both by Tool as well as Rollins was very similar. Just their on stage intensity and presence is just is just something of itself. They are intense, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, Henry Rollins has some great physical energy, but I've always appreciated him as a poet and a lyricist.
Yeah.
And you know, I've enjoyed a lot of his spoken word.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very bright individual. And then Tool is always a good go-to reference for anyone wanting to listen to some heavier stuff in a system. I mean, if you want to talk rock and roll bands that are well recorded and well produced and polished, I mean, that's a reference worthy band, I would say, for any demo system.
Yep. Agree.
So yeah, joining Ayre fresh out of college, what in '96. But I'm wondering what was it that you were studying in college? What was kind of the focus for you there?
Yeah. So technically, I joined Ayre as kind of an intern when I was still in college. I still had a few years to go, and it took longer because I started there. School became less interesting. But so originally chose School of Mines for the metallurgy program, It was really into cycling, in the bike industry. My dad had been involved in the bike industry, so I really grew up around bikes. So my original thought was, was metallurgy, intending to go into the bicycle field. Once it got deeper into some of the chemistry side of that field, I decided that wasn't for me. And then I briefly switched to mechanical engineering and then electrical engineering, partly because of my, because my friend introduced me to the whole hi-fi scene. So I quickly changed to double E because of that. And then was so about 2 years in, after I'd been reading, already been reading Stereophile, I actually saw a classified ad in the local newspaper, the print newspaper, and it was from Ayre Acoustics, and they were looking for an assembly technician. And so I did up a resume and I mailed it in. And Charlie called me back, and he claims that in that era that he received a lot of cold call resumes and applications. He got a lot of that, and generally he would just glance at them and throw them in the trash. He said that something about mine caught his eye, probably partly because some of the shared outside interests a bit. But so he called me back and said, well, we've already filled that particular position, but I'm really curious to talk more and see if there's some other fit. And so we shared a passion of cycling. We're both fairly avid cyclists, and I had built some homemade speakers as kind of a project, and so he was really curious about my design choices there, because they've been kind of a truncated pyramid shape, and so he was very curious about some of the hurdles you have to overcome to get that to assemble correctly. So because he had tackled the same things, and so he was actually able to dig up some notes about some of the equations to get some of the angles cut right on the table saw. So it was pretty wild.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you've all right, I have to ask, you've referenced your friend a couple times now. Is there a way to get a name for a shout out, or even just a first name?
Oh yeah, Nathan Bush. And I have very sadly lost touch with him over live. I text him once a year, maybe around birthday time or something. And last time I knew, he was teaching music history in Southern California. I know he used to have a side gig. He used to do a lot of music reviews, especially in the early days of the online reviews and such. He was a big name, and
that's awesome. Thank you, Nate. Yeah, it sounds like we got.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's had a significant influence on you musically, and from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, and then if you went to the other guy who actually introduced me to hi-fi, so Tony Miller, who is, I believe, currently with Oculus in Seattle area.
That's a good spot. Awesome. So you met Charlie through the newspaper ad and coming into interview, I guess, then. So I guess what stood out to you in your first in-person meeting with Charlie? Anything about his personality or mannerisms, anything?
Well, I mean, he was very personal, was very interested, was very energetic. And the time, like, I didn't know what to think or expect. I hadn't even I mean, I had heard of the company. They had been on the cover of Stereophile recently with the V3 power amp, I believe. And so So, but I didn't know a lot about the company or anything. So, came up, gave me the tour. We talked quite a bit, and in at least in what he told me, was that that but he saw something in me that he didn't know, where I fit in, but just knew that I needed to be here. I need to work here. So started at, it was $5 an hour or something, and I would come up, days I didn't have school, or I would come up in the afternoons, or just kind of part-time at first, and started out doing you name it. I organized the data books on the shelf in the magazines. I fulfilled literature requests. I started working on the website. Would take out the trash, you name it. Just the low level grunt work. Slowly started helping solder and build prototypes for the most part, and then started helping in service and production as needed, more and more. Even one point took over service at one point, as we had a gap in official service techs. From production, a lot started helping with a lot of troubleshooting in the prototyping side, and then started helping slowly in the schematic and circuit boards. Really enjoyed the circuit boards. I in some of my classes at school we'd started doing circuit board design, and I was really, like, one of the kind of challenges there was a pretty simple circuit, but just how small could you make it? And I think I won that challenge by a large margin. I was able to cram a lot into a small port. Anyway, and it still worked. It actually still, was small and worked correctly. So I really enjoyed taking that whole circuit board design to the next step, and so started taking over more of the logic and digital circuit boards at first. That was my first kind of taking charge of those boards and the designs. So a lot to do with when I started, the V3 had already been released, and the K1 had already been released, and so we were working. So I helped build the first K3 prototypes, and then the V1 following that. And so I helped a little bit with the V1 logic board, and even the power supply board a bit. And then I think our fifth product was the D1, which was a pretty big step, both for Ayre, in many aspects, as far as the complexity of a product, as far as being so heavily digital, as well as like the impact it had on the market, and as well as it's successful company really made Ayre, that really took Ayre to the next level. But anyway, so had really had a much bigger part of design of the D1, and like almost all the circuit boards in that had a pretty big part in.
Nice. And is all that within kind of your first 10 years ish of the company, or
That's probably the first 5, because I think the D1 was roughly 1999.
Okay.
2000. Yeah. So yeah, that's really within the first, because started Ayre in October of 1996.
Yeah. So you were involved in those. I guess what would be some of the early stuff that were maybe Ariel Brown projects? Like what were some things that you maybe were a lead on, I guess, that you can bring up
From those early days?
Yeah. Yeah. When did you first kind of take on a little bit more of a lead role, I guess, in design?
Well, so I'd say probably the biggest first one, almost entirely led the K5, which is pretty really push. I forget which number in our series that is, but had a lot he was heavily involved in the AX7, and then the K5 was kind of a spin-off of that technology wise. And so I did almost all of the K5. And then probably, pretty much everything since, as far as, actually implementing everything on the circuit boards. Charlie was still kind of the core creative engine. And so if there was some circuit idea or circuit tweak, he would bring that to me, and I would essentially make it all happen. Actually get it on the board, test it, troubleshoot it, make it work, figure out why it's not working, optimize it. There you go.
Yeah, so I know a lot of our viewers are kind of familiar with some of our story and our history, but after Charlie's accident, 2006 it was, from 2007, how did you and Charlie's relationship change? I know you might have kind of touched on it already just a second ago, but so it sounds like after his accident, you were kind of an extension of a lot of what he was thinking and wanting to have happen in the company.
Yeah, I mean, especially at first, especially right after the accident, after he was able to recover a little bit, but was still in the hospital for several months. And so, we were still in the middle of some pretty big design projects. So we had just released the MXR, and we're getting heavily into the KXR design, which was a very complicated and very involved design. So again, chassis, Charlie still had most of the mechanical design, the drawing side of it. So I had to even help out there temporarily to be able to finish the chassis drawings of the KXR. But yeah, I mean, it's at that point, I was already doing so much of the design work that it was, fortunately for Ayre, that it wasn't really a huge change. Just had to just take on even a little more. And again, like most of the actual implementation, had to take on all of it. Charlie's still very involved. I mean, his like I said, his brain was still very much alive, still very much there. His body didn't cooperate as nearly as much as he would have wished.
Well, yeah, he had his mind in his ears though, so that was yes, enough to keep propelling us forward, it seemed.
Yes, indeed.
Very cool. So I mean, we're at our 30th anniversary, and we're gonna just keep talking about that because it's such a cool number. It's a big deal for us, small business, 30 years. I'm just very proud of that. But looking back on everything that you've been involved with so far, is there anything that you're particularly proud of, or a certain product that you were involved with that you're just, man, that's my goat, that's my favorite thing?
Boy, it's hard to not say the R series. The MXR and the KXR especially, they were big challenges that I think we overcame with resounding success. And you had, I think those are probably still some of my proudest product designs, I'd say. I'm still really proud of the K5 being one of my, again, kind of first overall projects. Like particularly mine, and that one I still love it. That's one of our cleanest working, simplest, quietest, easiest to use products. I still really love that product. I remember had a lot invested in the V5 and the V6. I remember because I was still in school at that time, and had access to our to our kind of electronics lab there. And so the very first prototypes, the circuit boards, I would actually go down to that lab and actually, we had a little kind of PCB prototyping CNC machine that we would use. And so I would go down there and there's this teeny little V-bit cutting tool, and it would go and so there was a fairly large board. So that took hours to just machine off the copper layer of a raw circuit board. And so I had to do 2 of them to make a stereo amp. So spent hours and hours just watching this thing make those prototypes. Again, I was very invested in, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that one. I know the DX5. Some of our former employees can certainly recall, just again, blood, sweat, and a lot of tears went into that one. That was probably for me, because one of the things that I was able to bring to the company was again, bringing us into kind of the programmable digital age. And so I was able to start bringing some of my school experience as far as microcontroller programming and firmware stuff. So we're able to do not just glue logic, actually able to use microprocessors that we can program to do whatever we want. And so anyway, the DX5 was our most ambitious project yet in that regards. There were several different programmable devices that we had in that product. And so getting them all to do the right thing in a pretty complicated product, that was spent a lot of nights, a lot of overnights working on that one. I remember that was a really challenging product. And yeah. Oh, I could another one. So the C5 was a fun one, because that we had been talking about that product for a while, sort of, considering it, and then I forget what the impetus was, but the Tokyo show was coming up. Charlie decided, all right, we're going to do this. And we had about 2 weeks, and we hadn't even designed a schematic yet. So somehow, I think maybe we'd had some sketches, but so from busting out some schematics, laying out circuit boards, having circuit boards made, stuffing the circuit boards, chassis work, having the chassis work made, assembled, and miraculously somewhat working by the time Charlie flew to Tokyo. That is still, I don't think that feat can be recreated ever. I still don't know how we did that.
Yeah, that's impressive.
There were some miracles there that we pulled off, that including calling some company in California that made this little adapter on the weekend, and the guy there had happened to come in to do something on the weekend, and he happened to answer the phone, happened to be able to just ship this little circuit board thing to go over to FedEx and ship it to us the next day. That doesn't happen. It was wild.
Yeah, especially not anymore.
No. Anyway, yeah, no, I mean, I've got a story for just about every product we've ever made. The early days were certainly a bit more hectic, because most of our products were crammed into the end of the year trying to prep for CES. That was our kind of our MO. Was, the rest of the year was just kind of production as usual, and then like, oh, we've got this idea for this product, CES is coming up, and we'd cram it all into December trying to finish design and build a prototype to take to CES. So I'm glad those days are over. That was always a very, very stressful time of year. So we have to try to spread that out now. We don't have that same kind of schedule. So I'm definitely happy for that.
I look forward to stressing out with you over some trade shows soon enough.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, now that you're in charge and you're the big cheese, is there a dream that you have for Ayre that we haven't realized yet? Anything that we haven't done, any product we haven't made, or and anything that you can see us trying to do that we haven't done yet?
Well, I think it's again just to kind of expanding our reach, and as a part of again kind of trying to fulfill part of Charlie's dream, which was to bring music to the world. And so there's a lot of ways to interpret that, but his vision or his belief was that music can change the world. Music can change the chemical composition and reactions of your brain. Music can really connect and change the way you think. And so he thought that could be used for a very positive impact on the world. And so it's a very ambitious goal, because as we know, there's a wide variety of classes of people in the world. So that's a very ambitious goal. And we'll never, well, I shouldn't say never, but I don't expect to reach that exactly, but I think that we can certainly broaden horizons as far as just how much we can reach to. And so, I think one of the better ways is on the music, on the music production side. Certainly, we when we launched the QA9, that was kind of an initial stab at trying to reach more people with what we believe that our Ayre sound can achieve. Because if we can get the recording side, one product which can be used to record an album can now reach millions of people. So that's just one small piece of the puzzle. Yeah, so again, like want to go really just broaden the range and price categories of products that we offer, so we can reach just again a much wider audience. Be really creative in just how we market and how we reach people.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of our products being imprinted on an album forever, and being a part of that listening experience, no matter what system people have.
Yeah.
All right, Ariel, you know the company better than anyone. What would you say to someone who doesn't know Ayre to help them understand who we are and what we do and what makes us different?
Okay. Yeah, so we at Ayre, are a small, passionate group of people who want to deliver equipment that allows listeners to connect to the music in the most, I'm not sure pure is the right word, but the most emotional way almost. And so and from top to the bottom of the range, from the cheapest stuff to the most expensive stuff, it all has a very similar vein as far as what we are trying to provide and deliver to listeners and to the world. Just being able to allow the musicians to connect to you in some way, because it's music is powerful, and this is how we we want to be a part of that. And so, through our design philosophies, which, a lot of it, we try to mimic nature as much as possible, just because that's to us is the best way to transmit sound, essentially. And so the most natural materials, the most natural mimicking natural acoustic effects, things like ringing and such, pre-ringing, all things that has, really affects just the way the brain perceives sound, and can tell if it's there's something unnatural about it. And so the more natural something is, the more relaxed you are. And so again, one of the ways that I kind of evaluate equipment or music or anything whenever we're doing listening tests is just less about listening for technical details, but more just how I connect with it. Am I relaxed? Am I natural? Do I find myself just sitting and listening for hours without realizing it? Or am I constantly getting up and changing something, changing the disc, changing the song? It's, if it just sucks you in and just lets you be in the moment, then you're on the right track. And that's what, in the very highest level, that's what I want Ayre to deliver, is just that kind of transcendent experience of being able to sit and relax and just be enveloped by the experience, by the music. That's it.
Very cool. No, I that rings true to me as well. If I listen to anything and I feel like I'm searching for what I'm listening for, in a sense, and it's not just immediately bringing me to the place that it's trying to, I think that there's there's something missing there. And I think, yeah, that all of our core technologies, from balanced circuit design through and through to the zero feedback, is gonna allow for every sound to make its way through and not get masked or obscured in any way. And so it is going to present to you that full sonic landscape without any coloration or anything stepping on each other. So that's been my experience, at least.
Yeah. And then to kind of go sideways with that, I mean, that the challenges moving forward are really is to it's almost more on the marketing side, is trying to reach more people, and how to reach to reach the younger generations and pull them into this experience, as far as more affordable products and different sales channels to be able to reach more people. So that's almost the biggest challenge. I think that we have our core design philosophy that will work for a long time, and there's ways to kind of manipulate that for specific products and certain price points and all that. So that will last a long time. So the biggest challenge is just finding people that we want, finding people that need to experience this, and how to reach them.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very, very optimistic and hopeful, and and also very thankful for a lot of the streaming companies these days that are just really hitting home with pushing the high quality audio concept, and it's planting enough of a seed, I think, in the younger generation, that as they continue to grow into the hobby, that that's gonna be at the forefront of their concern, is high quality audio. So I do see companies like Qobuz and Tidal and even Spotify to a degree, providing a good foundation for a lot of the future audiophiles to really focus on that subject. So I do, yeah, I think allowing a wider scope of products to meet that younger generation coming into the fold would be nice.
Yep, agreed.
Well, very, very cool. I think it was great to get a glimpse into kind of our kind of recent history.
Yeah.
We're 30 years young, and we got 30 more to go easily, I think, from here. And very, very excited to have you at the helm. I mean, it makes perfect sense with all of your direct history with Charlie, and having the opportunity to kind of work in the trenches with Charlie for so long. I think that we're just in such a great position to kind of carry on all of his, you know, core values and what he wanted to see happen in the company, and continue to grow just as he would have hoped to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do pretty much an entire show just on talking about, Charlie stories and science stories and interaction there, but that's someday perhaps.
That's part of the theme for the year, though. So as we continue to retell the Ayre story and fill people in on all the really cool things that we've done over the years, and tell some fun stories about Charlie with his interactions with some of the other big greats out there like George Cardis or Richard Vandersteen. There's a lot of really cool I guess war stories in the audio biz to be had, and so we'll definitely go over a lot of those this year. And I liked your idea of maybe doing an episode per product too, just to go over another in-depth history on our products that we've gone through. Well, I think that's enough questions from me at this point, but appreciate you hanging out and having a beer with me, my good buddy.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for joining us. Hope you had a brew with us, and we hope to have you back next week. We're going to have some great guests coming up here again. And if you do have any suggestions or questions or requests of topics that you want us to talk about, throw it in the comments, leave us a like, give us a subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a great night.
Cheers.
Cheers.